This is the Kayatic Dreams Podcast.
This is the Kayatic Dreams Podcast.
It was all a dream. It's the Brooklyn way.
No man in the sky intervenes.
You can't handle the truth.
Fist and abominations.
You either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
Where did that bring you?
Introduce a little anarchy.
This is the Kayatic Dreams Podcast.
Upset the established order and everything.
This is the Kayatic Dreams Podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Kayatic Dreams Podcast. I'm your host, AJ, and today we got another movie review. Now, here on the Kayatic Dreams Podcast, we like to talk about everything from music, movies, television shows, you name it, I'll probably speak about it. It's been a long time since I've been compelled to make a video, but the topic I have for today definitely compelled me to get on, just record, get my ideas out to the people. I've been seeing a lot of mixed reviews, and honestly, they're more mixed when it comes to the actual critics. Now, when I first created the Kayatic Dreams Podcast, it was, to get that fan opinion, get my personal opinions out. I'm very opinionated, and I usually go against what a lot of people say. What I like differs from a lot of people. So that was one of the big catalysts for making this podcast. Now, this is the first podcast that I'm doing that's actually going to be video recorded. So I will have the video version up on YouTube for those who are audio only listeners. Please go check out the Kayatic Dreams Podcast on YouTube. And also check out my other podcast with my brothers in arms at Kayfabe Avenue, where we discuss all things wrestling. So with that being said, I'm back with another episode. And like I said, this movie that I'm going to talk about, it actually made me compelled to speak about it. I went in with no expectations, and that stemmed from, Facebook post. My one of my good friends got to see the movie, and he said the same thing. He went in with no expectations and ended up blown away. So naturally, that sparked my interest. So I'm like, let me check this out. And admittedly, as soon as I turned it on, I'm like, this looks like it might not be, the best movie. And, for those wondering, I still haven't revealed, I'm talking about The Tomorrow War, starring Chris Pratt. And what I got to say is one of his best roles so far. He got to do he got to add a lot of versatility to his role. It was a dramatic movie. It was a comedy. It was an action film. It was a lot of things. And I feel like the critics in the industry, the ones that are paid the big bucks to give their opinions on these films, they all got it wrong. I'm going to say that from the beginning. They all got this movie wrong. I thoroughly enjoyed this film. Just like my friend who, kind of told me about it, I went in with no expectations. Hell, a month ago, you couldn't even tell me what the Tomorrow War was. I probably would have, not even known it was a movie. I didn't follow anything. Usually movies that I really love, I tend to follow closely, behind the scenes and on-site photos. And, I like to, pick at the little articles and read up on every little detail. And, recently I've been realizing that the movies that I haven't been doing that to, when I actually come time to view them, I've just been either thoroughly enjoying them on another level, or my expectations aren't hit. So this movie, I'm actually glad I went in with zero knowledge going in with, I didn't know what the premise of the movie was. All I knew was the title. All I knew Chris Pratt was in it. One of my friends recommended it. So I dove in. So let's start off. The Tomorrow War. What is the Tomorrow War? So the premise of the movie is 30 years into the future, 2051, we have a war going on with the humans that are remaining on Earth versus these alien creatures. We don't know the origin. We don't know, where they came from, what's their purpose. All we know is they're overrunning the planet. the Earth's population is down to about 500,000. So in the future, they create this machine that allows them. It's essentially a time machine. It allows them to go back to the past. Now, the way they explained this in the film was it's like having a boat in the ocean, or one of those floaty vessels that people use when they, stranded in the ocean or whatever. So they pretty much give the example. It's like a boat in the ocean. One is 30 years in the future. One is 30 years in the past. They both continuously move forward in time, and you can only go from one ship at one point in time to the other. So that was their explanation. There was no in between. You cannot pick a certain year and decide to go. So for all those guys theorizing, hey, if they had time travel, why they didn't go back to the beginning and just, they can't do that. You're only allotted that point in time, 2051 and the 2021. So movie starts off, you see Chris Pratt kind of flying down, in the air, getting dropped off. You see a bunch of people falling to their deaths, and you're wondering, what the hell is going on? So we get the kind of cut to the future. You see him land. You see, it's in a devastated future. I believe the movie in the future is set in Miami. So a lot of destroyed buildings, a lot of destroyed property. It doesn't look like the world as we know it in 2021. This is a destroyed, overrun world, and like I said, only 500,000 population in the entire planet when it comes to humans. So now we jump back. We start in the future, 2051, then we jump back to the year 2021, where Chris Pratt is a professor at a school. He has a daughter. He has a wife. Then all of a sudden, the people from the military from the future that's fighting this war, they come back. They announce about the future war. They tell the world governments that we need to come together. We need people from this current time to be sent to the future to help fight this war. Now, the way they were selective on who got to go to the future and who couldn't was based on the fact if you were even alive. So people who were, going to die within the next 2 to 5, 10 years, that really didn't have a long life to give, they pretty much were sent to the future. So, if you were dying within the next 2, 3 years, then, you gave your life to this cause to try to save the human race and pretty much give another purpose instead of following that path, which would have led to whatever eventual death you were. So, of course, Chris Pratt gets recruited. The government decides to do the first ever global draft. So, people didn't have a choice. They were sending soldiers, sending civilians as soldiers to the future. You had to do your tour. They added these contraptions, kind of like a gauntlet on people's arms. It unlocks in 7 days. So one tour, 7 days. If you have a pulse, by the time that 7th day comes on that hour, you'll automatically get zoomed back to the past and the time that you came from. So basically, he goes in and he does his tour. And what he doesn't realize is that during his tour, he'd find familiar faces from his past, that being his daughter, actually being a general, leading the army in the future. And, they do put great clues as to, her importance in the future. In the past scene where she's a little girl, they showed, Chris Pratt pretty much testing her about chemical compounds and what elements are named, what's the name of certain elements and the coding behind them and stuff like that. So we see early on that she's a very intelligent little girl. She ends up growing up to be, the leader of the resistance. So in the future time, they end up hooking up together, trying to, stop this war, try to give the human race a final chance. I won't get into every single detail. I really want you guys to go out and watch this movie. The critics don't know what the fuck they were talking about. God honest truth. These people are going in with expectations of this has to be cinema changing. This has to be like, innovative. And no, some people just want to go and watch a movie just for the pure escape of it. For, some people just like the explosions and the action and stuff like that. Everything doesn't have to be a thought-provoking piece. Not everything has to be this giant art piece or drama. I really don't know what these critics are looking for nowadays. I went in there, no expectations. This shit made me laugh. This shit made me get emotional and tear up. And, as a 30-something-year-old man, that doesn't happen often. And I love movies. And if it really struck an emotional chord with me, that means it really was doing something. It did its job. And that's one of the critiques that I saw these critics giving was that it was unoriginal, that it had no drama, that it didn't bring people in. Well, you guys have no fucking soul. Reviews like this, you gotta leave it to the R&Rs. Real nigga reviews. Real talk. I'm sick and tired of these Roger Eberts. I'm sick and tired of these people that are obviously corporate dickheads that don't know how to give a real opinion. If you look at all these critic reviews, they're literally churning out the same review, the same exact review. They're churning out the same exact points, the same thing. 10 plus reviewers, and they all got the same exact quotes. Like, come on, the industry is fucked up. Obviously, these companies are trying to sway people's opinion, and they're trying to control what people like and what people don't like, and that's evident. Just check my coverage on the DCEU, Snyderverse, and all that. Like I said, this is the first video show for you guys watching on YouTube, but this is definitely, one of numerous episodes that I've done on the Kayatic Dreams Podcast. I'm on all streaming platforms, so check that out: Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast. You can check all my coverage on Snyderverse and all types of stuff, but it just doesn't make sense to me. This movie was great. They saying it was drawn out, it was too long. No, it was perfect timing. They had just enough exposition. They had just enough background history to teach us. They took us through the ringer, God honest truth. And for people to judge Chris Pratt's acting and try to knock him for this, these so-called critics that are supposed to know what the general public, what they like and what they should watch and stuff, you guys are fucking lost. We need to get rid of all these old school 70-year-old, 80-year-old critics that are still looking for Turner Classic movies and old bullshit. Honestly, you guys are lost. Keep up with the times. Like, we live in a superhero comic book world now. Everything is a comic. Everything's like that. And you guys are trying to judge sci-fi stuff based on like theater dramas and stuff. Like, come on. At least meet the criteria of what the fuck you're covering. You understand? You can't relate. These 70, 80-year-old boomers, they can't relate to people in their teens, 20s, and 30s and what we like. Pop culture is completely different now than it was back in your days. You guys didn't even have fucking internet. And you want to judge everything to your standard. Well, your old asses need to sit down. This movie was excellent. From start to finish, I was engaged. Just the whole story of, him being a father and trying to protect his family and ensure their future. You go to the future timeline. He finds out that, obviously people who are accepted in this program, they're people who died already. So his daughter in the future kind of tells him exactly what led up to his death and, the distance between him and her and, the reason why his future daughter has so much animosity. Like, you get caught up in all that story, and then when you finally see them come together, work together, and there's, like I said, I don't want to give it too much away, but there's a specific scene where it looks like it's the end of their rope. and he's trying to save his daughter as well as save the world, but it's on him to go back to the past with this cure or this vaccine that can destroy the aliens. That's basically what they were doing. They try to steal one of the aliens. Excuse me. They try to take one of the aliens, study their genetics. They had the mother alien, which these aliens. Let's talk about these aliens first off. They kind of move like a beehive. They have the queen alien that produces for everyone. The rest of the hive has to protect the queen. It's the same thing with these aliens now. The design of these aliens were fucking bad ass. Tentacles that shoot, projectiles. They look vicious. They look like alien dinosaurs. Like they're ridiculously fast. They're vicious. It was something I've never really seen before outside of like a Resident Evil or something to that effect. The design of the aliens were really, really good. So, that emotion of him trying to save his daughter and whether he succeeded or whether he failed, you can see that this war and these conditions of the world really affect the people that are sent to the future. If you watch this movie and you get to the part where he does his tour and goes back home and you don't feel emotion based off the obvious PTSD this man just suffered through, is gonna suffer through, witnessing his future, family's dilemma, seeing how the world is, trying to rescue his daughter, whether he was successful or not, just all the trauma of what he witnessed to go back to the past, that scene is what really set the bar for this movie for me. Like before that scene, it was, another action movie that I was, absorbed in. But once he came back and his family was there to greet him from his tour, you see his hands shaking, like that put my mind saying like, wow, like it's like the soldiers from Afghanistan, the soldiers that come back from Iraq, or these soldiers in our real life that go and fight these wars for us. They come back with all these, disabilities, missing limbs, PTSD, all these mental issues and mental trauma. Chris Pratt did an amazing job in portraying his PTSD, his trauma. You felt it. When I'm sitting there, I'm looking around the room. Everybody in the room is like super glued to the TV and getting emotional, and I'm like trying to hide it. I'm not trying to look like a punk in these movies, but I'm trying to hide it. I'm like, man, it's really catching me. Like, am I feeling feelings? That's rare for me when it comes to fictional things and movies and games and stuff. Like, it's really rare for me to get emotionally attached. But that scene, oh man, it hit me right here, the pit of my stomach, and that was kind of the statement for me. Like, I can see Chris Pratt in more than just a comedy role. I can see Chris Pratt in more than just this action guy. He's actually a jack of all trades, and hats off to Chris Pratt. Really, really great acting in this film. He did it all. He's a perfect, leading actor to portray every kind of emotion. He can make you laugh. He can make you cry. He can bring you the suspense factor and keep you on the edge of your seat. And that's exactly what this movie did. It's exactly what Chris Pratt did. Kudos to his acting. Kudos to his attachment to this film. He went into this film. This is original IP. And that's what gravitated him to it. He's known for Jurassic Park. He's known for Guardians of the Galaxy. Known for Parks and Recreation, the TV show. And he's kind of always been fit into this bubble, like kept into this box of, this is the kind of actor you are. This is the kind of IPs you're going to work on. This was original. By the end of the film, I'm like, I could possibly think of 2-3 possibilities of how they could make a part 2. But if it stood this way, I'm okay with it. This was a great movie, start to finish. When he goes back to the past, he has a renewed, he has like that renewed assurance to get shit done to save the world. He saw the trauma the world calls on his daughter and going back and seeing his adult daughter going through what she was going through in the future, to go back. Like I said, that seeing him shaking his hand, seeing his family, looking at his daughter still alive and young, and it's like just the emotion of that. Imagine you go on a tour of duty. Your child is 6, 7 years old. You blink, and then you seeing them at 20 something, 30 something years old. You missed an entire lifetime. That is a mind fuck. To then go back after dealing with whatever trauma you dealt with in the future, to go back and see your daughter as a little girl again. Just that is a mind fuck. And he played that scene off so well. And, if it wasn't for that scene, this probably would have been just another good action movie to me. But that hit home. Bravo. Kudos to Chris Pratt and the writers and everybody behind this movie. Like I said, it really it compels me to make these reviews and stuff in hopes that you could click on the Kayatic Dreams podcast, you can click on the YouTube of this podcast, and you can say, you know what, whether I like the movie or not, or whether I agree or not, this guy gives his honest opinion. It's not a manufactured, corporate bullshit review. And I think we as fans, we need to start taking control of the narrative. We're the ones paying the money for these films. And if it was up to Roger Ebert, and I'm calling you out the most because you're probably one of the most renowned critics we have in America, and you shitbagged this movie. Completely shitbagged this movie. I believe his review was like 3 out of 10 or some shit like that. Like, I couldn't even go through the first paragraph. He was shitting on it so bad. And it's like, why? Like, yeah, and naturally, after I watch movies, then I go and see the reviews and see what other people thought in comparison to me. So I'm also glad I did that too, because I didn't go in there like, oh, Roger Ebert said it sucked, so I'm not gonna. No, I went in there with no expectations, no nothing. I was blown away. They've already confirmed a part 2 is in the works. Chris Pratt is definitely all in on this franchise, and he should be. The critics bashed the fuck out of this one, and it became the #1 stream movie, period, over the weekend that it came out. And we're talking about a weekend that had Black Widow debuting. Says a lot, especially considering Disney Plus is also streaming Black Widow on their premiere access program, whatever they're doing. But for that movie to kind of blow everything away, screw you critics, screw you corporate stooges that just want to peddle bullshit. Like, what happened to originality and like just appreciating a movie for what it is? I grew up in the 90s, bro. I was born in the 80s. We've churned through so much bullshit movies. I could make a cereal box and they'll make a movie about that shit. That's how much they used to make bullshit movies back in the day. And we used to get little cult classics. It's like people preventing cult classics from happening. Like, the biggest example, the Snyder Universe. Instantly a cult classic. Instantly, destroy people's expectations, coming out of that stupid Whedon universe. And why? Because the critics just bash everything. Now they have this restore hashtag going on because everybody, jumped on board after they saw the actual vision of the director. And, I blame the critics for this bullshit. If people would have went solely on people's opinion like Roger Ebert, the Tomorrow War wouldn't have been successful. We probably wouldn't get a part 2. And all of Chris Pratt's hard work and everybody behind that production would have went to shit just based on an old fart's opinion. Bro's like 70, 80 years old. You're a fucking boomer. You don't relate to anything in this generation. And hell, half of the canon that we're on in this generation, you probably wasn't even interested or even up on when it comes to like comics and stuff like that. So these freaking critics, they need to go somewhere. People, I always say it in the beginning, ends of all my shows, go out and see this for yourself. Draw your own opinion. Do not let anyone sway your opinion. You understand? Like, to get a second opinion, awesome. I do that all the time. I said that earlier. After I watched the movie, I went and saw what everybody else thought. That's what compelled me to make this. And you know what? I'm going to continue doing that. for movies, music, gaming, any and everything that I feel compelled to speak about. I want to give my unbiased review on things because I think the fans need to really take control. We need to really step up and, dominate this industry. All industries. We're the ones giving the money. Why should that 70, 80-year-old dude pretty much shit on something that was really great and stop the growth of potential franchises? Overall, I'll probably give this movie a 9 out of 10. Um, it's damn near a perfect film. Like it gives you everything, bro. Everything. I don't know what else to ask for as far as this. Like, of course, people are gonna find little plot hole elements and they're gonna try to nitpick and break it down. But with any time travel movie, any time travel TV show, there's always gonna be a little plot hole here and there, or um, someone finds a problem in the way you explain your version of time travel, because this version of time travel is a little different than, let's say, a Back to the Future or anything like that. So, once Chris Pratt came back from the future and he realized what he needed to do, he ended up pretty much solving the riddle of when did these aliens actually attack? When did this problem really start? Come to find out, the aliens have been on Earth the entire time, going back to when a volcano erupted around China. The ash flew into all the way to Russia, and everything kind of froze. The alien shit was frozen in Russia. So now we see them take it to the aliens, try to destroy them before they ever get a chance. That whole action scene, it was just awesome. And then, we had not only the story between Chris Pratt and his daughter and his wife, his immediate family. You also get that storyline with him and his father, who's played by I forgot his name, Simmons. He plays J. Jonah Jameson in the Spider-Man universes. Also played Gordon in the Snyder Cut. So, they had a great storyline where it was like he resented his father, and throughout the film, with his personal experience going to the future, seeing how his family shaped up and his issue, it gave him a second, a second thought on giving people second chances. Something that was a real big theme in this movie. Second chances. His father was a war veteran as well. His PTSD from the wars led him to, remove himself from his family. And that was a great mirroring. Chris Pratt goes to the future war. He experiences that trauma, comes back with that PTSD, but with the knowledge of the future and the things that transpire between him and his family, going back now, he has that second chance that he wasn't even willing to give his father. And now, in the culmination, him trying to stop the aliens before they ever awaken and become an issue, him and his father grow closer, and you see that second chance for him. And like I said, this was the theme of the movie, second chances. It was a second chance for Chris Pratt and his family. It was a second chance for Simmons and, his role as Chris Pratt's father in this film. It was a second chance for humanity. It was a second chance for the world. And this was a good talking piece about the current state of the real world, where, our nations are divided. We're warring with this country. This country's warring with that country. Everything's about self-interest. And this movie was about tearing down those borders, those national borders, and realizing this is one Earth. We are on one planet. This is all our home. We all share this space. And as citizens of this planet, we have to protect it. There's so much going on in this film. So before I just continue on all day gushing about this film, because that's what it is, I'm gushing about this film. It was amazing. I want you guys to go check it out. And if you didn't like it, click those comments. Let me know what you liked, what you didn't like. If my review was completely bogus, hey, write that shit too. We're here for all the smoke. I want people to be more engaged. I want people to engage me in conversation. I want to engage you guys in conversation. Give me ideas. for movies and TV shows to talk about. I'm going to leave this movie with a 9 rating. And it wasn't a 10 because of those little nitpicky time travel things that people are obviously going to try to pull out their ass and complain about. So, to be fair, I give it a 9, but touched every note I need in a film. Great action, decent story, possible franchise, good world building, and just overall put me through the ringer of emotions. I was happy, I was sad, I was laughing. It was just a roller coaster ride. And the second thing that got me to watch the movie was the commercial saying like the most epic film, and me and my friends were kind of laughing like, oh really, is it that epic? It was. I enjoyed it. It was great. Once again, hats off to Chris Pratt and everybody behind this film. Congrats to Amazon. You guys hit it out the park. This is probably the first original movie from the Amazon Prime camp that honestly, this should give a run for anything in the theaters right now. Honestly, I watched Black Widow the same weekend, and I gotta say, definitely enjoyed the Tomorrow War. So, hope you enjoyed this review, guys. Once again, this is AJ, your host of the Kayatic Dreams Podcast. Please like, share, and subscribe. Please show the love. Join the conversation. Please go over to my brothers in arms and my other podcast, Kayfabe Avenue. We love the wrestling world and all things wrestling. Please click on Kayfabe Avenue, like, share, subscribe on that podcast as well. And this has been AJ. This has been the Kayatic Dreams Podcast. See you guys next time. And of course, judge for yourself.